Oh boy, I really didn't want to do this. I thought this will be a positive video, that I will love the game, and unfortunately it's gonna be one of those critical videos about critically acclaimed big budget title from Sony. So yeah, strap in, this need more info, and we're gonna talk about God of War Ragnarok. So yeah, if you can believe it,
And if you can believe it,
I didn't like this game very much. But it is also not so easy, so I can just say the game sucks, it's terrible and you shouldn't play it, because it's not. Actually, there were quite a few elements or set pieces that really worked for me and were great. But maybe we should start with talking about where I stand on God of War 2018, because that's important, because it's sequel. So yeah, God of War 2018 was just fine for me. It was okay, it was an enjoyable enough action-adventure title with beautiful graphics, interesting world, the story was okay, the gameplay was okay, and at the end of the game I just thought, well, this was okay, and if they really expand and improve upon this, the sequel could be great. I mean, there were obvious problems with God of War 2018, like the bosses recycling, you were constantly fighting trolls. The finale I thought wasn't that great because this was just a set of kill rooms and you were constantly going back to the Tyr's temple, so like they ran out of levels. And now we're here with God of War Ragnarok, and I think they just took all the major criticism that people had about God of War 2018 and just tried to address most of those. So for example, the bosses and in general enemy variety. In the first few hours of God of War Ragnarok you will see more different enemy types than in the whole 2018 game. Also, there's this one moment in God of War Ragnarok when I thought the creators were just winking at me, saying like, yeah, we know we fucked up with the first game, there were so many troll bosses, but no more, because there's this epic moment, stuff is happening, and then suddenly a big troll appears and Atreus is like, oh no, a troll, and then Kratos just kills the troll in a few seconds during a cutscene, so you don't have to fight it. So going back to the improvements over the first game, so yeah, the combat was expanded, there are more options, there's even a new weapon that I won't spoil, but I think it's pretty cool. In general, combat feels faster, tighter and better. People also complained about the small font in the UI, and it is also fixed. The font is now much bigger, to the point that the menus just look ugly. But at least they are legible. You can also visit all the 9 realms this time. They even fixed some little stuff that I think most people just won't notice, like for example when you are low on health. In God of War 2018 the screen was tinted red and you can constantly hear the sound of heart beating. And sometimes there were no healing items in the area, so you were just stuck with this sound and this red screen for some time. And they fixed that, because now when the combat ends and you are in a critical state, you will just heal a bit. Also, I don't think it was a major criticism of the first game, but they improved side quests a lot. I mean, some of the scenes you've seen in the trailers that look awesome, some of them are from the side quests. So yeah, it's worth doing them, at least some of them. Basically, most of them are just much more than fetch quests. So yeah, overall it looks like they learned and they improved upon the first game. So why didn't I like this game more? Well, this is a question I'm asking myself for the last few days, and I think the main problem is the length of the title. And maybe not just the number of hours, but just the length of the story and the way they're telling the story. So in the first game the story was focused almost entirely on Kratos and Atreus and their relationship. And it was very intimate and felt small, but also effective. But the story in God of War Ragnarok is much more substantial, more complex, there are more characters to introduce and to explain their motivations. and the way they did it, and they tried to mix it with the game that God of War is in terms of gameplay, I think didn't go too well. I mean, really, some levels just felt like they were there only so that your companion can provide you with some exposition, with some background, with some new information that expands the story. And the levels were just corridors in which you do a few puzzles and fight a few enemy groups, and that's it. And most of the time you were just going back to the realms you've already been in, but you're in some different area, but it still looks the same. So like I mentioned, in the 2018 game, they ran out of levels to finish the story and you were constantly coming back to the Tyr's temple. And this time they made more levels, you can visit all the realms, the environments are much more varied, but at the same time they created much bigger story and it forced them to force you to visit the same levels again. But corridor-like levels and returning to the same realms again is a problem of basically the second half of the game. But even in the first half, I felt the game ran out of steam around hour 10. Yes, there are quite a few new puzzle types introduced in Ragnarok, but they are all introduced in the first few hours of the game, and later I felt the game was kinda samey. And once again, you can say the same thing about God of War 2018, but the God of War 2018 was only 20 hours and this is 40 hours. And the game is trying to fool you into thinking that they're constantly introducing something new, like for example new modes of transportation, because in God of War Ragnarok there is not only boat, but also sleds or animals, but they all walk the same way as boat on the Lake of Nine in God of War 2018. Having said all that, I think if you're really into the story, if you're really engaged with it, you will not mind or not notice those things that I mentioned as much. Basically, I noticed that the game starts to be very repetitive only because I wasn't engaged with the story as much as I should. And the story is not bad, it's going into some interesting directions and basically it tries kind of the same thing that Last of Us Part 2 tried. So they're trying to show that there are no clear bad guys here, that the Asgardians, which basically are the enemies in this game, sort of, that they also have their problems, that they're just people like our characters and they have their own motivation and things like that. But I think they didn't find a way how to show the story in a more interesting and engaging manner. Because seriously, most of the story is related to you through cutscenes or just by characters that accompany you, talking to you constantly. And it's a shame they didn't find a better way to tell the story because, for example, the casting is great. I mean, Odin is phenomenal. It's a much better take on Odin than the one in the MCU movies. So yeah, this guy is better than Anthony Hopkins in my opinion.
Yeah, his mind was gone, sure. But he had his uses and now he's gone because of you.
The same goes for Thor and basically all the major characters. But at the same time, they kinda undo the great casting by having people speak like modern people. So, I think it was in the first game, but since in the first game there are really just a few characters that you've met, it wasn't really that noticeable. I get this was a deliberate decision because this is a multi-million-dollar franchise and it was supposed to appeal to everyone, but yeah, it really bugged me. Especially since I saw the Northman this year and I think it had done better in this department. And it was also a big budget movie and I think it was quite approachable. But yeah, that's a minor concern anyway. So for me, basically this story, this concept is kind of wasted on this game because it's very limiting in how you can tell this story using this type of gameplay. I even thought that maybe this game would be better if they introduced some dialogue options that would allow you to ask characters questions and that's how you get the story and not through some boring levels in which you basically go down the corridor and the characters just monologue you the exposition. Other ways they could improve the game, I think, at least from my perspective, is just make it a lot shorter. Just cut off some stuff, make the storytelling more effective. Basically, if there's a level without some cool boss fight in the end or some new interesting puzzle mechanic, then just, don't do it. So basically, you see, this is not just a case that I think the game sucks and I hate it and you shouldn't play it. It's much more complicated. Basically, I'm much more frustrated than angry. I'm frustrated because there are so many things that are better in this game, that are improved. There are quite a few moments or scene or set pieces that really worked for me, but they were bogged down by the rest of the game, which I think was like 80% for me. So I'm just frustrated it wasn't better and I didn't like it more. At the same time, I think most people will like it and will not have any problems with the things that I mentioned here, but I wanted to just talk about them. So yeah, that's my take, and I'm kinda interested if you played already this game. What did you think about it? Did you like it? I could go on for a lot longer and mention all the small improvements that I noticed, or all the small annoying things or other missteps that I noticed in this game. I didn't even mention the puzzle thing, that the NPCs basically are solving the puzzles for you, because I think at this point everyone knows about it. But what I really wanted to get across, I think, is that the game critique can be a little bit more nuanced than, for example, this game is great, or this game is bad, or this is a game of the year. Because as you can see, I liked a lot about this game, I also disliked a lot, and in the end it was just an interesting experience for me, and I'm glad that I experienced it. I'm glad that the game exists, and I don't think it sucks and you shouldn't play it, or also that I don't think it is great and you should play it. Everyone will have their own experience, this was mine, and I'll see you in the next video.